All right, cool. So yeah, I'll show you once again my palette. This is the way it is tonight. We have a lot of colors, just a tiny bit of blue and purple, mostly white, a lot of red, yellow. But you guys know the drill. You're gonna be mixing colors that you want to paint with, okay? So I will show you how I mix all of these colors, but you know, always tweak them to be more your style and your vibe, okay? So, okay, let me get my notebook out of the way. Y'all already know how to set up your area also, but for some of you who are catching the recording, I have a cup of water right here. I've got my brushes. I have a size 10 round and I have a size 3 round. Just these two are all we're gonna need tonight. But those of you who do have your own supplies or ultimate paint kits, feel free to experiment with your brushes. You can get all kinds of cool marks using other brushes. So play around with that however you want. I have my palette right here. I'm right-handed, so I like to have everything just right here next to my right hand. And then I have a paper towel also, okay? So I just set everything up right here so I can do all of my mixing and whatever I need to right there. And then I have my canvas right in front of me. You wanna make sure that you put your canvas in a portrait position, which is up and down long ways. You don't want it sitting in front of you in landscape position because you might just start painting with it like this and then you'll get halfway through and you're gonna realize, oh crap, I've done that before. So it's always good just to set up your space exactly how you need it. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a minute to get that set up. And awesome, everybody already has their name changed for me. That's fantastic. Thank you. Even though I actually know everybody here tonight, that's awesome. It's just gonna be a bunch of friends hanging out. I need that tonight. So I'm gonna run over to Facebook real quick and I'm gonna check on our last person and see if she's coming, make sure she's okay. And then we'll get started, okay? Let's see. Okay. All right, you guys. So Amy, you're the only one that's not muted. Go ahead and mute if you don't mind. Thank you. Are you wearing a Bay Band? It's really cute. I have an order to go with her. I just haven't submitted it yet. She's really sweet. Okay. There's Diane. Awesome. Hey, Diane. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna give Diane a second to get set up. Hey, Diane, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Here I am.
Hey, you.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, that's okay. It's a small group tonight. I got a lot of people catching the recording, so you're just fine. All we've done so far is set up our palette.
I'm doing that now.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead if you don't mind and click the mute button down at the bottom left-hand side. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. That's perfect. Okay, so that way, on our recording, it will stay just my face for the most part, and it'll only switch over to you guys whenever you all hit the unmute and you have a question, okay? Awesome. Okay, so we're back in the shop tonight. So we won't have any distractions like we did last time. My kids are at home, they're with their dad, eating dinner. They're not gonna be here, although that was kind of fun, being at the beach with you guys. But anyway, I think tonight maybe I'll be able to focus a little bit better. So this is our painting tonight. It's gonna be a fun one. A lot of you guys have painted florals with me before, so you kind of already know the drill with this. You can compose this however you want. If you love this big flower and you want more of them, or you love that shape, just put more of them in. I love these little yellow guys in here. So you can put as many of those in as you want. everybody's painting is going to evolve differently as we go. So don't be afraid to make changes and kind of just really make it your own, not only with color, but with composition as well, okay? The key is going to be to just keep everything really tight together, okay? So you can do whatever flowers and whatever greenery you want, but you want to keep everything really compact and layered on top of each other. So don't be afraid to let your flowers, you know, bump elbows and just get really close and layer on top of each other. Okay, that's really going to be the ticket tonight. So if you guys are ready, I think we can just kind of jump in and get going. We're going to start with our size 10. Okay, so grab your 10 round, or yeah, is that a 10? A 9, sorry, your 9 round. Maybe you have a 10. I'm pretty sure you all have 9s. And we're going to just plot out where our pineapple is going to be. So I'm going to just mix. I'm going to start first just by mixing a light pink. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of red and a little bit of white, just a very, very little bit. So my palette kind of looks like that. I'm not mixing much at all. And I want it to be very pastel because I don't want it to show up too much. I'm just going to use this to basically just kind of map out my pineapple, the fruit part of it, so that we can go back and paint flowers on top of it. And so most of our flowers are all in warm tones, and that's why we're painting this undertone of a warm color, okay? So just kind of get your brush wet in there. You can let your color be marbled. If you see on mine, it is very marbled, right? There's just not too much to it. Now what you're gonna wanna do is find the center of your canvas, okay? And maybe go up about 2 inches or so. That's about where the top of our pineapple is gonna be. And right now, the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna paint our basic pineapple shape, just this fruit part, okay? So you're gonna wanna leave a lot of room up here for the green. So anyway, you wanna find the center. My center is about right here, and I'm gonna jump up about 2 inches or so. So center, jump up about 2 inches, 1.5 inches, you know, roughly. And that's kind of where the top of my pineapple is gonna be, okay? And now what you're gonna wanna do is basically just paint an oval, okay? So I'm gonna kind of come around and I'm gonna paint an oval a little bit smaller than what I'm comfortable with first, because I have a tendency to kind of favor one side of my canvas, especially when I'm holding up my canvas like this. So I'm drawing an oval that is smaller than I want. The reason why is now I want to measure each side and I want to get it smack dab in the middle of my canvas. And you guys know this trick. I'm going to take my paintbrush, I'm going to take the end of my paintbrush, and I'm going to measure the edge of my brush to the edge of my canvas, and I'm going to mark my finger right there. Then I'm going to come to the other side and I'm going to mark it as well. And I'm going to see that I am off center. Okay, so then I'm going to look at it and I'm going to pull my side out a little bit over here. So now I know, okay, now my oval is pretty accurately in the center of my canvas. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second. Measure that. You do want it to be pretty centered. There are tricks that we can look at later if you end up not being centered. You know, we'll make a flower kind of come off the side a little bit. It's not that big of a deal, okay? But once you do have this oval, go ahead and just fill it in. Just lightly, just a nice thin coat of paint, nothing fancy. It doesn't matter if it's kind of a variegated color. That would probably even be better for you. Okay, I'm just taking that size 9 and I'm just really pressing kind of hard. I've got a pretty good amount of paint on my brush and I'm just filling it in, kind of going all which way. It doesn't really matter if your brush strokes show up or not, because this whole thing is really going to be very covered. Okay, now one thing about my oval as you're filling this in is I want you to pay attention to its shape. Pineapples are not ovals. They actually are a little bit more squared. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of come up here and I'm gonna kind of square off my pineapple shape, my oval shape. So I'm just kind of making my edges come out and kind of square them off. They're still rounded edges, but see how they're kind of squared? And I want you to do that on the bottom as well. I'm just going to turn this to the side for a second so I can get a nice even edge. Now I'm going to turn my canvas upside down because it's easier for me to get more the right angle, okay? But the bottom of your pineapple is not round, right? Because when we set them on the counter, they're able to sit flat. So I want you to try to draw that with your brush. So the way you're going to do that is kind of like what you did up here, except just a little bit wider. So I'm going to come down, kind of square it over. And I'm kind of, when I'm coming across the bottom of my pineapple, I'm making a, well, because I'm upside down, I'm making a sad face, right? But you would make more of a happy face if you're not painting upside down. Okay. There we are. So something similar. And if you're looking at mine, you can see my edges are not even. I'm a little bit wobbly in places. Remember, this is going to be totally covered by all of these flowers, but what we're doing, you see, is we're filling in where all of what's called the negative space. So everywhere that there's a tiny little spot kind of coming through these flowers is already painted for us, okay? So that's what we're doing. And you notice you cannot see the edges of my painted pineapple at all. You only see the flowers, okay? So don't get too hung up on that part. Remember, it's just a map. It's just gonna be a guide for us. Okay, okay. I'm just doing my edge real quick. Okay, so what we really want to focus on is going to be the greenery. That's going to take us a little minute to do. So I'm going to take my size 9 and I'm going to drop it in the water and I'm going to pick up my 3. I'm going to grab a little bit of white and mix it in with my green. Just a little bit, okay? I don't want to make a super light green, but I want to get that white mixed in because, as you guys know, that magic white paint just tends to make this green a little bit more opaque and easier to work with. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm doing there. You see, it's not too much lighter, but it's enough. Okay. And 2, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to kind of roll it off to the side here, right next to my paint, just to get all the gobs off. Okay. But I still have a good little amount of paint on my brush. Okay. Here comes the fun part. I'm going to show this to you. If you, I forgot to mention this before, you guys, but if you have a way to pull up this image like on your phone or on an extra computer or iPad, you might want to do it just for reference. I'm going to show this to you as much as I can, but it is always easier if you have an extra image of it off to the side, just so that you can watch and not have to wait for me to show it to you, okay? Okay. All right, you guys, so here we are. We have our little pink pineapple here, so we're gonna start working on our greenery. So I've got my size 3 brush, and I'm gonna start on this side, and I'm basically just gonna kind of do the framework. I'm gonna do all the outer leaves first, okay? And then I'm gonna fill in the inner leaves, probably from top to bottom, because if you look at the way the pineapple leaves grow, the back ones are the longest and they're in the background, whereas these front ones are more in the foreground. So we're gonna paint all the way around and then from top to bottom because these are the closest, okay, if that makes sense. All right, size 3 brush, here we go. So I'm gonna start right on this side over here and watch how I do it, and then y'all can hop on and do it. I'm just gonna come right over to the side here, and I am going to draw not a sad face, not a curve, but I'm kind of gonna just angle outward just a little bit. I don't know, that's about an inch or so. This is a small little leaf, and I'm gonna angle down. Y'all see that?
Did you say that's a number 3 or the number 9 brush?
Number 3.
Oh, number 3.
Your
Okay.
smallest. Yep. Yep. For sure. I'll give you guys a second to get here. Once we start doing these leaves, you'll get the hang of it. I mean, every leaf is shaped a little bit differently. These first three and our last like 3 or 4 over here are going to be kind of the same recipe. Everybody else is just kind of crazy, which is good for you because it means you can't really go wrong. You know, you can really kind of make this whatever you want it to be. So I have my straightish line, okay? I'm gonna come right up here and I'm gonna go up and over and kind of curve here and meet it at the end. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in. It'll just take about 2 brush strokes straight across. Okay, and then I'm gonna draw a tiny little triangle right here. So see where this comes down? I'm gonna come in like so. My triangle. That's the leaf folding. And I'm gonna fill that in too, okay? I'm gonna come up a little ways and I'm gonna do kind of the same thing, and my leaf is gonna go in a different direction. Now, you do not need to anchor every leaf at this point. It will be impossible, and it's gonna feel kind of funny, but you need to see the bigger picture where we are making our leaves kind of just radiate outwards. We're gonna come up and around, right? So my next leaf is not gonna come out of anywhere. It's just gonna start to kind of stack, okay? But it'll all make sense a little bit later. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna kind of pick a point to kind of come off of here, and I'm gonna come out, and then I'm gonna come up, and I'm gonna make my triangle at the bottom. This one's a little bit bigger than the last one. I'm gonna fill it in. I'm gonna do one more of these, and it's gonna be longer, a bit bigger. I'm gonna come up, maybe even a little bit further out, and up, kind of make my triangle, and I'm gonna fill it in. Okay. So your paint should be pretty thin right now. You'll probably be able to see your canvas showing through a bit, and that's totally fine. Y'all know how this paint works. It's just gonna take a few layers, and we do have some other greens that we're gonna wanna put on these leaves to show contrast and to help them show up against each other especially, okay? So don't worry too much about filling it in totally in the perfection. You just want to get the shape right on this round, okay? Okay, moving on. This leaf just kind of comes straight up. I'm gonna bounce it off of about the middle of this one, and I'm just gonna come out to a point and down and fill that in. See that okay? All right, our next leaf is also gonna kind of come off here. And I want it to come out, kind of up a little. That's a little bit pointier than I wanted. I'm gonna kind of round it out here. There we go. Something like that. Now I'm getting to the top of my canvas very quickly. I don't know if you are or not, okay? So I'm gonna start kind of aiming my leaves more this way. Kind of gonna just travel across the top here, okay? The top leaves, they all have kind of different, they're all different heights. You see that? So we're like right here-ish. Okay, so now we're gonna go down, up. So they're all different. You see that? So you don't want your leaves to feel like they're being cut off by the top of your canvas, okay? So purposefully make them different heights so that it looks more centered, right? You don't want all your leaves to come up to the top and then all of a sudden end, right? It'll look like a knife, just kind of cut them off, okay? So let's keep it as natural looking as we can. Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of come up right here, right around the side here and do a leaf like so. If you have room, I'm gonna fit in one right here by just doing kind of a straighter bent line and down. One like that. Okay, see how I just fit that little leaf in there? I'll go ahead and fill this guy in. Right next to this one, there's an even wider one, but since I'm up at the top here, I might skip that next leaf. If you want to go ahead and do it, you're welcome to. It's this one right here. See how wide that guy is? But my leaves are already up here at the top, so I'm going to go ahead and start doing these top leaves. So see how you can kind of make this what you need to make it? Okay. So what I'm going to do to kind of adapt here is I have a leaf that kind of comes to a curved point and down, and it's thinner, okay? Okay, and then I'm gonna do another one that's gonna kind of come out to the side and around. Let me draw it so that you can see it. Something like that, kind of a weird bent leaf. And all of these leaves, the shapes of them will kind of evolve and change as we start filling them out too, okay? Now I'm gonna start kind of leaning over to this side, angling my leaves out. This one just kind of comes out to a nice point and down. It's nice and simple. The next one is the same thing. It just comes out a little bit farther. And it actually does have our little triangle friend. So it bends down and it has its little bent leaf and it comes in. Fill that guy in. Alrighty, moving right along. I've got a similar leaf, but he's just small. He just kind of comes in just like so. I'm gonna go ahead and fill that guy in. All right, we've got 4 more leaves on our outer edge, and all of them have the little triangle guys at the end. So I'm gonna come out, this guy's a little bit longer and wider. He's kind of coming more out towards the side of my canvas. I'm gonna put my triangle on. He's kind of weird. He's a little bit thicker here, and then he comes down like that. Remember too, pineapple leaf shapes are all different. They're all funky. So as long as you're making each leaf a little bit different than the last one, you're doing great. Okay, we got 3 more if you can fit them. If not, just kind of adapt. Okay, I'm gonna come up again, triangle and in. Same recipe, just a little bit smaller. And again. And one last time, if you can swing it out and in. And he kind of just touches back at our pineapple base. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a minute to kind of go back around all your leaves because I know we drew those kind of quickly. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want your brain to think too hard about them. I wanted your hand to do all the work. But now that we have them, go back around and just kind of smooth out your edges a little bit. Take a look back. It should look kind of weird, okay? So here, this is where we're at and this is where we're going, okay? It should look kind of funky, okay? I'm gonna let you smooth out your edges. I'm gonna turn on the air in here. I'll be right back. Okay. How are those pineapple leaves going? Good. I'm gonna smooth out a few of mine real quick. Just focus on making each leaf shape different. Okay. So we're gonna go back over all of these leaves and add in a little bit of darkness, okay? So you can just wipe off this green off onto your paper towel. You don't need to wash your brush. We're gonna make a little bit of a richer, darker green by adding blue and just the tiniest smidge of black, okay? So blue is right next to green on my palette. Black is way over here because I don't want much of it. But I'm gonna grab a little blue and kind of swirl it into my green. I'm not looking to make a turquoise. I'm looking to make a richer, more jungly green, okay? So you can tell you've started to go more on the turquoise end if if you've added too much blue. So just keep adding more green, okay? I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna grab just a dot of black. Okay, see that? Just a dot. And I'm gonna see what happens here. There we go. That's kind of the color that I'm going for. If y'all can see that. So I have my light green that we just worked with. I have my green that hasn't been touched by anything, and there's my dark green. So it's got a little bit of blue and the tiniest bit of black in there. I'm rolling my brush on my palette right now, just trying to get off all that excess paint because I just mixed a color with my brush, and you're always bound to get gobs of paint. Okay.
April, can you show me your painting?
Sure. Here's where we're at and here's where we're going. Okay. All right, you guys. So I'm gonna go back over every single one of my leaves and give it a little bit of darkness, okay? So I've got the dark green on my brush and I'm just gonna kind of sweep it into the bottom of my leaf down here. Kind of mimicking that shape just a little bit. And I'm gonna put it in my triangle because there's a shadow under that fold, right? So in order to really achieve that shadow, see, I painted, if you can see close, it's hard to see that shadow right now. I just have a little bit of my light green. So your light green needs to go all the way here to the end. There, like that. You see what I'm talking about? See, the light green goes to the end of the leaf, and then the triangle is painted dark, and then there's just a little bit of darkness towards the bottom of the leaf. Okay. That was hard to explain without showing you. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna paint in my little triangle dark on my next leaf, okay? And then starting, I guess the way to describe it would be to start your shadow on the bottom of your leaf right at the far, let's see, I guess it'd be the far right-hand side of your triangle towards the inner part of the leaf. That's where you're gonna kind of get your shadow in. Okay. And I'm gonna do the same thing up here. My shadow in here. Okay. You see how just those two colors, those nice contrasting colors, give us such dimension. Okay. So now I'm up on my third leaf, and this guy's easy. I'm just gonna give him a nice thin shadow on the inner side of the leaf until I get more towards the base, and then I'm gonna spread that shadow out just a little bit more. Okay, our light's shifting a little bit here. This next leaf doesn't have too much of a shadow. I'm gonna go ahead and just put a little bit of one down towards the bottom, just for consistency's sake. See just a little bit down there on the bottom of the leaf. And when I'm painting in these smaller shapes, I'm not using my whole brush. I'm really just using maybe the top third of my brush, okay? The top third of my brush is what's bending when it touches the canvas. So that means I'm not pressing super hard. If you start pressing hard and applying a lot of pressure, you're gonna get a wider, bigger shape. Okay, but I'm just pressing very lightly. I'm gonna put a little more of a shadow on this bent leaf here if you did that one. Now, what I want you to do is start paying attention to the leaves that are around it. For example, when I start painting in him, I'm gonna kind of curve to the other leaf that's there in front of him. I'm not gonna paint over that leaf. I'm gonna paint as if he's going behind that leaf. Okay, because it's a bigger leaf there. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so I'm still painting on the left side of my leaf here. I'm gonna give a nice shadow on this nice round leaf, being mindful of the other leaves around it. Not quite half the leaf, but you know, a good part of it. This next leaf, I'm gonna curve still on the left side. And you can decide if you want this leaf to go in front of the leaf next to it or behind it. I'm gonna go in front. So I'll just curve right on down. I'm gonna add just a little more darkness towards the bottom here, because I know, especially on these top leaves, I'm gonna have other leaves jumping up in front of this guy. And so I want it to be nice and dark down there because the lighter tips of the smaller leaves are gonna be in front of it. Okay. Still on the left side. Coming in on that leaf with the shadow and down. Okay. Move into this guy. I'm gonna kind of start picking up the pace with these shadows because by now you're probably pretty comfortable with this color and you kind of get what we're doing. So I'm just gonna keep moving down. So this leaf where we have our first triangle here over here, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint that triangle. But this is where after this leaf, our light kind of shifts. So he's got a shadow on the top because this leaf is a he, obviously, okay? This, and I'm going to switch my light now and I'm gonna start painting my shadows instead of on the left, on the right side, okay? Because the leaves are bending down this way. So I'm coming down to the bottom here. I'm getting my shadow in down here. I'm gonna paint in my triangle. Put my shadow in. Same thing all the way down. Paint in my little triangle here and my shadow. Got 2 more to go. Paint my triangle and my shadow. Last one. Okay. Okay. There we are. Got our first round of shading in. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on some of the inner leaves here. There's not very many, okay? It'll be pretty easy to just kind of start to layer these in. These leaves are a little bit plumper, okay? They're a little bit wider. They take up more space. So I'm just gonna wipe off this dark green, and I'm gonna mix a little bit more of my lighter green because I've started to run out a little bit. If that's the case for you too, that was just white and green. Remember, we just mixed a little bit of white, really just to make our green nice and opaque. So I'm gonna do that just to get some more here going. Okay, it feels good. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna start right up in this area, okay? Now remember, the point of these leaves is to really fill in space. So go ahead, be nice and wide with these leaves, and you might even have to make some up. Once I teach all the ones that will fill in this space, you're just gonna have to take a look at your pineapple and just see for yourself if it makes sense. If you need to add in a couple of leaves here and there, you know, by all means do that, okay? I'm gonna mix a little bit of a lighter, even lighter green. I don't want you to do this. I'm just gonna do it for the sake of the camera so that it shows up better. Because I'm afraid when I start painting on top of these other greens, you're not gonna be able to see them very well. Okay, so if yours is not as contrasty as mine, that's fine. I just want you to really be able to see these, okay? Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna start right over here. And, you know, I have this weird area in here. So a lot of my leaves are going to be, you know, coming out of the center. Like pretend there's a stem that runs in here, right? And all of the leaves are coming out of that area. So all of your leaves need to be angled inward, okay? So anywhere over here, we're only going to be doing, there's 2 leaves here and there's 1 over here. So knowing that, you need to position your leaves where it's going to make sense. So I'm going to position a nice curved thick leaf right here. I'm even going to overlap a little bit. And I'm going to fill it in so that you can see it better, because I don't know that you can really see this very well. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this in. Okay. And y'all, there's 2 of these and they're right next to each other. So I'm going to paint in that other one right next to it. And they're very easy to draw. You're just coming up. It's like a curved triangle almost, okay? Now right over here, there's a shorter one and it's a little bit wider and it's rounder. So I'm gonna come in, something like that. Okay. So those are my first, that's one of my rows. I'm gonna come in to my second row here. I'm gonna get a different green so this shows up for you guys. Okay, so my next leaf, it's a nice, even normal leaf shape, if you will. So it's gonna have a point at the top and it's rounded and it's gonna be angled inward like that. Y'all see that okay? I'll fill it in. Okay. I'm gonna get a different green even, so this shows up better. Okay, let's see. All right, so now I'm gonna draw another leaf, and there's 2 more leaves and they're gonna go on either side. Remember this nice rounded weird one we have right here on our first row? I'm sorry, on our second row? There's a leaf on either side of this guy. So there's one here, and then there's another one that kind of hugs the other side of it. like so. Can you guys see that okay? So there's one leaf on either side of that one, and I'll fill them in so maybe you can see them better. Okay, I know all my greens are starting to look the same, but there you go. Okay, and then there's gonna be one more leaf, and it's gonna start at the base of our pineapple, okay? And it is gonna angle outward. That green will not show up for you guys. Here, let me get lighter. Okay, it's gonna come out and in. And it really just comes across the very top of our pineapple here. So you should only have a small little spot here left. And if you have a big spot here left, what you can do is just kind of elongate these a little bit. Pull them down. Bring them down so they're longer. Fill in that space. Okay. Now remember, mine is very contrasty. You should be using the same greens that you were using before. I'm just using a different green so that it shows up on the camera better for you guys, okay? And we'll go back and we're gonna make all of these pop more because we're gonna put in their shadow, okay? So here we go, I'm gonna do 2 more leaves here. These are just, they're kind of weird. They're just kind of folded and kind of funky right here. So I'm using an even different green so this shows up. There's just a little one right here. And the other one kind of comes up and down and in like that. You see that? So I'm gonna, this one just curves up and down and I'm gonna fill that in. And this one just kind of folds itself down. This one might very well get covered up later with flowers. We don't know, but it does the job right now, okay? Okay. I'm gonna go through real quick here and I'm gonna try to make my leaves a little bit more consistent with my other leaves. Just gonna run this darker green over them real quick. Okay. Here we go. Now take a look at your pineapple too and decide if you want to fill in leaves anywhere else, if you want to make up leaves. You know, I see kind of a weird spot right here for me. Maybe you have that too. So I'm gonna just put in, maybe I'm gonna make this one a little bit longer, a different shape, just to fill that space out. Okay, that feels a little bit better. Or I could have added a leaf. I might add a leaf over here. I might do that, just add one little guy here, you know, why not? Okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna go into my dark, my shadow green. Okay, remember that dark green that we mixed? Now I'm gonna come in on the opposite side. I'm gonna come in on the left side of my leaves here and put in the shadow. So I'm gonna come all the way down. Now it's really important when you're doing these inner leaves that you give a nice shadow at the base of your leaf and have it kind of grow upwards and kind of fade, okay? So you want it along the side of the leaf, but you really want it down here at the bottom because that's gonna really help with contrast with the lighter leaves that are on top. We really need those to pop. So go to each of your leaves and you really want, I might even start in the base. I know you can't see because of my hand, but I'm down at the bottom of my leaf. And I want it to be darker towards the bottom, and then I want it to get lighter towards the top. So you might have to go back and forth with your greens just a little bit. You might not. It might be just fine. Add in a little bit of lightness. You might even consider making a lighter, an even lighter green if you're having a hard time with your leaves really popping against themselves. Okay. So I'm going to each of my leaves that we drew. Now I'm on my third one right here, and I'm kind of drawing a V with my shadow because there's a leaf that goes on either side of him, right? And I'm pushing the paint up in the middle, that darker color. Now I'm going to wipe off this darker color, and I'm just going to grab my light green, and I'm going to meet it there, pull it to the top. Okay. Just doing a little bit of blending here, okay? So I still want my nice strong highlights and my leaves out here to pop. I'm gonna put in some darkness down here. This is where my leaves are meeting again. So I'm doing that little V shape because it's coming right down in there. I'm gonna wipe off that dark, grab my light, meet it in the middle and pull up. Kind of blend it right down in there. Okay. Grab a little bit of light for this bottom one. This bottom one I'm not too concerned with. I'll put a little bit of darkness down here, but it might get kind of covered. We'll see. Okay, so you see how I'm just kind of going around to each leaf, just like we did on the other ones out here. And there just needs to be a little bit of darkness, okay? Now I will say these two leaves here, their darkness tends to be more towards the middle of the leaf rather than the sides. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and lay in some dark here. And then of course down, to the bottom. That looks kind of funky. So I'm gonna take my lighter green and I'm gonna paint right on top of it and just blend it in. Okay. And then this middle leaf here, same thing. Kind of make my darkness towards the middle of the leaf. And then down towards the bottom, I almost forgot. And then take my normal green here, my green that we mixed, and blend it in. Okay. I'm just gonna add a touch of this darker green out here, maybe kind of towards the inner part of my leaf. These two leaves, these little ones right here, I'm not really too focused on those. And then I'm gonna add a shadow on this leaf that I made up over here. So if you have any leaves that you added to your pineapple, don't forget to treat them with a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so they pop. Okay. I'm gonna give you guys a second to kind of work your leaves out a little bit. Once you have all of your shadows in and everything's kind of blended, you can take a look back again and kind of see if you need to fill in any leaves, if anything kind of feels funny to you, and if you can't tell, then just wait until we do some of these flowers. And when we do the flowers, I think everything will kind of come in full circle for you. Okay, so it is 8 o'clock right now. It's the perfect time to take a quick little break because we just have our flowers to do, and our flowers pretty much they go pretty quick if you've ever done flowers with me before, which all of you have. So we'll take a 5-minute break and you can kind of work your leaves a little bit more if you want to. If you want to add in any highlights, you can. It's not necessary, but you know, your highlight would go on the opposite side of your shadow if you wanted to add in a little bit of lightness. I'm going to check and see if you guys have any questions, or if you want to send me your paintings in Messenger, you're more than welcome to. I have Messenger pulled up. But if anybody has any questions, you can ask. If not, I'll be back in 5 minutes and maybe some questions will come up and you can ask me. Just remember, you want to really work that darkness, okay? All right, so I'm gonna pull this painting up for you guys. You can take a look at it. I'm gonna get something for it to sit on. Almost. Here we go. All right, at least you can see the top part of it. All right, y'all, we'll be back in 5. All right, you guys, how's it going? Everybody getting those leaves figured out? That was half our painting. Oh, Amy, they look great. Great shading. Awesome. Nice, Diane. Awesome.
I feel like mine is kind of missing something.
Yeah, okay, so they're feeling a little bit blocky. So what you can do is you've got awesome contrast. You have really, really dark darks and really light lights. So you need a good middle ground, okay? So the green that we have on our palette that's not mixed with anything, it's just that pure green would be a great green to use as a transition because it's gonna go on relatively transparent. And so you can layer it on your darks and you can layer it on your lights, and it will just naturally just pick up the darks and the lights and kind of even everything out for you. Okay, so I would use your size 3 and just pick up that medium green and just start maybe just putting it directly on your dark and seeing what happens and kind of just gently pulling it into your lighter areas. So I would layer it on your dark and gently pull it into your lighter areas, okay?
Okay.
Kind
I'll
of
do
see how that goes for you. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, does anybody else have any questions? Okay.
So I dropped my paintbrush right in the middle of my pineapple.
Perfect. Well, lucky for you, we're gonna paint flowers right over it.
I knew we were, but I'm still kind of covering it with a little bit of white.
Sure, that's a great idea. Either white or some of that light, whatever the light color is that you blended, a light pink would be just fine. You know, you can position a darker flower right there if you want to, because we have, you know, this like purple flower right here that looked like it was right roughly about where you dropped your brush. Yeah, bingo. Yep. And 2, you can make these flowers whatever colors you want. So if you want more of a purpley pineapple, then, you know, make your colors a little bit darker, more pineapple-y. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. You knew exactly what to do. Cover it up just a little bit and strategically place a flower right there. And you'll be fine. All right, guys. So let's start on our flowers. Okay. Let's see here. Let me take a look. All right, so if you have not yet, go ahead and wash your size 9 brush. We're gonna jump and use that big guy first, okay? So get your big brush nice and clean. Just a reminder, you wanna get all the water out of your bristles. We don't wanna be mixing water with our paint. We want our paint to be nice and thick and opaque. And if we mix water, it will be thin and transparent, even more so than it already is. And we don't want water on the metal part of our brush, especially now because we're gonna go in for some details and you don't want that water droplet to drip down your brush and onto your painting, right? Okay, so we're gonna start with this flower right here. Okay, it has a couple of layers to it. So we're just gonna start with the back layer first. We're gonna let that dry. Maybe come in and put our other flower in down here. Nope, that's not true. We're not gonna do that. This flower is too much in the foreground. We're gonna put in this flower, the background of it first, and then we'll do some of our more background flowers that you don't really see too much of, okay? This guy might actually be one of the last ones that we do. It appears to be more in the foreground than anybody else, okay? And then the very last thing we'll do is we'll tuck in these little green guys, okay? But we'll worry about that later. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna mix a just a darker pink. Okay, so what we're gonna do to do that is I just have my size 9. I'm gonna get just a little bit of white here, a little bit of red, and just mix a pink. Okay, not anything crazy there. I want it to be nice and rich. You just want to mix a color that you like. Okay. Mix a color that you like, but we do want it to be on the darker side for balance sake because we have another dark flower on the other side of our pineapple. So, okay. And I love this brush for flowers like this because my brush is already going to be the shape of my petal, which is awesome. So I'm just going to roll my brush a little bit on my palette. I still want lots of paint. Okay. All right, so here we go. So this flower takes up a lot of space on our pineapple. Okay, so let this be big. You're also gonna let the petals come off the side of your pineapple. Do not let the outline or the shape of this pineapple that you drew be the part where you end. You want to extend every single flower that we're gonna be drawing on the edge out past it, okay? That's what makes this kind of work a little bit better. Kind of like what we said up here. If you stop every single thing right here at this edge, you're gonna have this weird cutoff and you don't want that, okay? All right, so here we go. So I've got my big size 9 and I'm gonna draw like a set of parentheses and I kind of overlap this leaf a little bit. I'm coming out and I'm circling in and I'm coming out, I'm circling out, okay? So I've got kind of a pair of parentheses there. I didn't have enough paint on my brush. I didn't get a nice full petal like I wanted. There it is. Okay. See that? I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to come right down the center here. And then one on either side. And I'm even going to go out wider. I want to be a little bit wider here. Okay. So it should just look kind of blobby. I'm going to put a little bit, I'm going to put a dot of white on my brush. Okay. There, like so. And I'm going to come back to these petals, maybe start in the middle one and pull in a little bit of white and coming down. And see, it's not really showing up as white as it's showing up more of like a variation, okay? And I'm just gonna go to each of my petals and just kind of pull them out a little bit here, just to make it a little more distinct, okay? I'm not gonna worry about it anymore. That's all we're gonna do right now. That's all we need right there. Okay, so I am not gonna wash my brush. I'm gonna just wipe off some of the gobs here on my paper towel real quick. But now I'm just gonna take the color that I have on my paintbrush and I'm gonna come out to a new section on my palette and swirl it around and I'm gonna get an even lighter pink. Okay, so new section on my palette by my white. The color that's already on my brush, I'm gonna swirl it around and I'm gonna get an even lighter pink. And you can see on my palette, it's still kind of marbled, right? That's all I need. Okay, so it's very similar actually to the color that I already have painted on my pineapple. So for the sake of the recording, I'm gonna grab, and just the camera, I'm gonna grab a lot more white so you can kind of see this, okay? But I'm just gonna take my brush and I'm gonna come over to this general area somewhere over here, okay? I don't know if you can see this very well, but I'm just taking my brush and I'm just smearing around some color on there. Okay, I'm gonna do it with white so you guys can see it better. Okay, y'all see that? I took my brush and I just kind of smeared it, rolled it. Okay. Made a blob. Now what you are gonna do while your paint is still wet is you are gonna take white like I did, and you're gonna go on top of this lighter. You're not gonna press as hard. And I'm just gonna kind of drag and roll my brush just to create a little bit of a variation. Okay. And I'm not gonna think about it again. I'm gonna let this go. That's all I need right there. Okay, I'm gonna show you my palette again. I've got white on my brush. I'm gonna roll a little bit of that off onto my paper towel. I'm gonna take yellow. And I'm gonna bring yellow over to this dark pink that we've mixed. Add in a little more white. I'm gonna make what I call more of a flamingo pink. It's just a little bit more tropical. Okay, it's more of like a peachy pink. Okay, so you want a color very similar to that. I don't know if you can see that very well. Okay. It's got yellow, red, and white mixed together. Your goal really, you guys, every time you mix a color, I know you hear me say this a lot, is just to mix a color that one you like, but that's different. You want it to be different than a color that we've already used before, okay? So if it looks very similar to this color, you need to add something to it to change it, okay? Now, I have a ton of paint on my brush. I'm gonna come right down here and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna swirl, I'm rolling and swirling my brush around, kind of like in a tornado until I get to the center. And I did that right underneath my big flower. Now, if you want to roll off the edge here, that is perfectly fine. We have a leaf that comes up right here, and I might just do that for the sake of, I don't like very straight lines. Okay. So while our paint is still wet and we have this nice peach color and it's nice and thick, I'm gonna just grab white, okay, on my brush, just like we did last time. And now I'm gonna lightly drag it around my flower. And I'm kind of rolling my brush and dragging. I'm gonna roll and drag. I'm lightly touching my painting. But because there's so much paint there, it's very easy to create all that variation. Can you see that? I'm not pressing hard. That's the ticket. You do not want to press hard. You really just want a lot of paint on your brush. And I'm just barely touching the canvas. I'm dragging and just kind of rolling it around, okay? I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to wipe off this white, but I'm still going to use this color, okay? So this flamingo pink color, I'm getting more of it on my brush. And I'm gonna come right up over here, opposite my big flower. And I'm gonna do the same thing that I did over here, but smaller, okay? There's a small one right here. So I'm gonna parentheses, 1, 2, okay? I'm gonna come down the middle and down the sides. Now we're doing these flowers so quickly because we have some more detailed flowers. Like we have these yellow flowers that take a little bit of time to really develop and get nice. And this guy too takes a little bit of time. These are pushed into the background. These guys not so much, but these guys are so pushed into the background, they really are just taking up space. So they're very easy to just kind of disengage your brain, you know, smoosh around some paint, and then we're going to do the centers and all of a sudden you have a flower, right? But these other ones, they take a little bit of time, okay? So by now, this should probably be pretty dry for you, our first flower that we did, okay? So I'm going to take my brush and I have that flamingo color, but I'm actually going to sandwich it in between my paper towel and really pull. And I'm going to get off a lot of that color. I don't really need to wash my brush though. I am, since I used that area of my palette to make my flamingo pink, I am gonna just grab a little white over here and I'm gonna make more of that dark pink. And it would be okay if my pink was even a little bit different than what I had originally been painting with. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit darker. That would be just fine. Okay, so here's my color. It's similar. It's probably not exact, but it's similar. Okay, there we go. So now that I have that color, well, let me get a little more. Now that I have that color, I'm gonna do the outer edge of my flower, okay? So it's a little bit darker than before. So it's gonna show up when I paint with it. I'm gonna come about halfway up my flower and pull down. You see that? And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna kind of come around the edges here, pulling my brush outward to in. Okay, and that's creating this top part of our flower. Okay. I know it's hard to kind of see on the recording, or I'm sorry, on the camera. The lighting here is so funky. I'm getting an even lighter pink, so I've just taken my brush and I've rolled it in some white over here just to get a lighter pink. And right on this inside, I want to do some little petals that are kind of on the inside here. I want those to be even lighter if I can. So I'm just using little motion, little brush strokes on the inner part of my flower there. I'm wiping that pink off, and this part, you know, isn't too big of a deal, but I am going to grab a little bit of yellow, and I might even grab a little bit of white here, and right on there, I'm going to add in some yellow. Grab a little more yellow here. Okay. So I've kind of messed up my petals out here a little bit. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that pink color. And kind of just like we did last time, we took a little white or a lighter pink and we made those variations. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull in from the center right there and just kind of even everything out. Okay, pull it all in. If you want to, you can even kind of come out to the side a little bit and widen your flower just a little bit. Kind of get the bottom there nice. Okay. A big like cup flower. I'm gonna look at it this way for just a second. It's hard painting off to the side and getting everything nice and even. There we go. Okay. So this area up in here is gonna be lots of little white flowers. We have a nice big yellow flower right here we're gonna do in a minute. I'm gonna try to fit in a little purple flower here too, it looks like. Okay. So let's see here. Well, I'm gonna wipe off this dark pink. Well, yeah, I'll just wipe it off. I'm gonna get a little bit of white. Okay, and I'm gonna come over to this flower here. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing, just pull in a little bit right here in the middle there. See, I have those weird little brush strokes. Then I'm gonna get my flamingo pink again, maybe just a little bit darker this time. And I'm gonna do the same thing that I did over here. I'm gonna go right on top of it and pull down. Okay. And do those outer petals. So it looks like that white is just sitting right there in the middle of the flower. Then I'm gonna wash my brush. Okay, so I've got a nice clean brush. I'm gonna work on some purple flowers. So we have a purple, but it's a very, very blue purple, okay? So I'm gonna grab some white and I'm gonna mix it into my purple. I'm sorry, did I say white? I meant red. I'm gonna grab red and mix it into my purple. I don't know what I said, but I am gonna grab white too. Okay, so I want both. I want white and I want red. I'm gonna mix it into my purple, okay? If you don't have purple already on your palette, blue and red make a great purple, okay? But you just wanna be heavier on the red, okay? This keeps it a little bit more of a tropical looking purple, okay? You definitely want white. That'll bring out the color a bit more, not make it as dark and murky. Okay, so I've got more of that reddish purple up in there, okay? Now this is the same formula as these two flowers, is the one right down in here in this corner. So I'm gonna take my brush with my purple, and this whole corner is a flower. I'm just gonna swirl it and roll it. Swirl, roll, just kind of fill it in. Layer on lots of paint so it looks something like that. And it's just important that while your paint is wet, you pick up white and you push and pull again. I'm just pressing and twirling my brush around and around. Pick up a little more white. I'm gonna keep the center of this flower pretty dark. So we do need to add in another purple flower for balance sake. So I'm going to show you the original painting. You can kind of see where we're at and you can see where we're going. Okay, now you see this purple flower is hidden right back in here. Okay, I'm going to have to put it somewhere slightly different on my painting that I'm doing tonight because compositionally I don't have room right in there. Because I have a yellow flower that's going to go right here also. Okay, and I want room for my little white flowers too. So, so what I might end up doing is kind of putting my yellow flower a little bit more over this direction, and maybe putting a purple flower like right in here, a tiny, smaller little purple flower here. It's totally up to you where compositionally is going to work for you. So once again, in the original painting, I have this little flower that I'm about to do right back here. So it's right in between these two. It is right here. Okay. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move mine to right out here instead of right here. Okay. But that's up to you, however you want to do it. But it's the same recipe as what we just did right here, except it's just a little bit smaller. So decide if you want yours to be right here. Go ahead and swirl, but I'm going to put mine right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just swirling around, rolling my brush so I get kind of a funky shape. Okay, I'm going to fill it in. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of white and do the same thing. Just like so. I'm gonna wash the purple off my brush. In fact, we're gonna drop down to our size 3 brush next. Okay, so when you're ready, get your size 3 nice and clean and get all of the water off of it. Okay, I'm gonna check in with you guys, make sure y'all are okay. Does anybody have any questions? Is everybody okay? Lindsay, how are you doing? I haven't seen you tonight. You're good? Okay, good. Amy, I see you taking pictures. That makes me happy. Thanks. All right, cool. All right, so let's do these yellow flowers. They're really cool. They're these guys right here. So we have our size 3, no water. I'm gonna get some white and yellow together. I do want a pastel yellow. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it right over here to the white over to my yellow. I don't want it to be too light, right, where it doesn't show, but I do want a nice soft yellow. That's probably pretty good. You can see yellow. I want it to show up, and I want it to be bold, but I don't want it to be overpowering. Okay. I'll give you a second to mix that yellow. So we're gonna put in our first yellow flower right here, right in this area, okay? Now these flowers have 5 petals and they're kind of layered on top of each other, okay? So you're gonna wanna make sure, you know, this flower should be relatively dry. We're gonna overlap it just a little bit, okay? So when you get there, just be careful, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the middle of my flower and just put a dot there, okay? I'm gonna mix some more white into my yellow so that it shows up better. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna paint 5 petals that are all the same size and pretty much the same shape. They're just a diamond, or not a diamond, an almond shape, okay? And I want about 5 of them. And they overlap each other just a very little bit, and we'll pull that out a little bit more in a minute with a highlight. So I'm gonna do 2, there's 2, 3, don't be afraid to overlap your peach flower, I am. 3, 4, and 5. This one's gonna come over my purple flower. If you don't wanna go over your purple flower, you could tuck this petal behind your purple flower. In fact, I might just do that. It is hard to paint yellow on top of purple for multiple reasons. One, you know, purple is a darker color than yellow, as most colors are, but also because yellow is the complement of purple, when they do mix together, they make an ugly brown. So we don't want to do that on our tropical painting. So go ahead and tuck that flower behind if you can, okay? Notice too, I really went off the edge of my pineapple, okay? I'm gonna have a green leaf that comes in right here and it will kind of level this side of my pineapple out. So right now, if it looks kind of chunky, it is, okay? But we'll have this green leaf that comes in and it'll just kind of smooth it all out, okay? So I've got my 5 petals, my paint is still wet. I'm going to grab white paint. You can either take straight white paint and just trust that it's gonna blend in with your yellow and make a light yellow, or you can mix an even lighter yellow on your palette, however you feel best, whatever's easier for you. I think I'm doing a combination of both. I have like a very marbled white yellow. So I'm gonna pick one side of my petal. In this case, it's gonna be the left side. So I'm gonna take from the center point of my flower, I'm gonna do one yellow, light yellow brush stroke to the tip of my petal. Can you guys see that? And I'm gonna do that on every petal, starting from the center. So when I'm done, it looks like I have a swirl because the central point is the center of my flower, and I'm starting from that central point and I'm curving on the outside of my flower. And it should be light enough that there's nice contrast. Okay, I'm gonna just go back one more time over that. Really make it pop out for you. Okay, can you see what I'm saying there? See how it looks nice and swirled? I started from the very center of my flower and I curved out on the left side of my petal every single time. Okay. All right, we're gonna do 2 more yellow flowers like this and we're gonna let them dry. So we're gonna leave that one alone. We're gonna do another one right up here in this area. Now, once again, figure out your composition. So I'll show you the original painting so you can see all these little white flowers up here? They're really fun, they're everywhere. So we do want space for those to come up here, but here's our yellow flower, it's right here. It overlaps this peach one, this purple one, although I put my purple out here, and these guys. Okay. Here we go. We're going to do the same exact thing. So you just want to find your central point, wherever that is going to be, make a little dot, and you're going to do 5 petals, all the same size, in an almond shape. And you want to overlap the flowers that you already have. That peach flower, that light pink flower, you're going right on top of them. Okay, you want your petals to be all the same size, best you can. Now, you will find that when you go over this dark pink flower, it is very hard. The yellow is so transparent that it is hard to kind of get a solid color there. So you might just want to let that part dry a little bit and then do another coat or 2 or 3, just right on that tip of that one petal, okay? Maybe over here on this peach one too. Okay. Same thing, I'm gonna grab white or light yellow, whichever you feel more comfortable doing. And on the left side of each of my petal, I'm gonna start from my center and I'm gonna come right on the outside of my petal. And once I have all of those done and they're gonna be connected, it'll make that swirl shape for me. And I'm just turning my canvas because it's just easier for me. And then you can see also. Okay. So there's my swirl. All right, we have one more yellow flower like this. We're moving right along and it's gonna be right here. All right, so same thing. I'm gonna find my central point. Now this central point is gonna be kind of close to the edge of my pineapple because I do want this flower to travel over to the side of my pineapple. And this is a kind of a larger one, okay? So I'm gonna make my petals nice and big. I need to make a lighter yellow here, it ran out. There we go. It's the worst when you run out of a color mid-flower. Okay, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm overlapping this purple guy out here a little bit. That's just fine. My petals got a little bit more rounded than normal. Okay. Okay. Got all my petals in, and now I'm going to take white or a light yellow, whichever. And I'm going to do my swirl. Okay. I'm going to go over that one again. It didn't show up quite as contrasty as I want it to. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, so we've got our 3 yellow flowers in. Fantastic. Now we're gonna move down into this big flower that's down here. He occupies a lot of space. If you want to, you can jump up to your size 9 brush. You don't have to. If you like your small brush, you do have a lot more control drawing when you use it. It's up to you what you want to do. I think I'm going to jump up to my 9 because I can paint quicker because the brush stroke is a lot more bold, and I like that. Okay. So it's pretty much the same color that we used in this color up here, or in this flower right here, okay? So if you don't have that color mixed on your palette, go ahead and do that. It's a little bit of white and red, but of course, mix whatever color you're gonna enjoy looking at. If you're more of a tropical person, you want more yellow thrown into your color, go for it. However you wanna do it, okay? Just make sure you roll your brush after you've mixed a color because you get tons of paint, you know, in your brush, okay? I'm gonna give you guys just a second to finish up your yellow flowers, and then we'll start on our big pink flower down there in the corner. Then we're going to go back around and do the centers of our flowers and our white little flowers. Add in a little touch of greenery here and there. And then the last thing we can do if you want to do it is those little black dots that are in the background. So we're doing great. We're doing just perfect on time. And it's moving right along. Did anybody have any questions about any of the flowers that we've done so far? Are you guys all okay? Okay. So I'm going to start on this big flower down here. Now the center of my big flower is really kind of off to the side here. I would say it's about right there, okay? So take a look at yours. Your petals are definitely going to come off the side, but you don't want them to come off too much more than what you already have with your yellows, okay? You don't want them bulging out here, right, to create a different shape. So you want to make sure that they stay within the realm of your pineapple, okay? So with that said, you know, I have my center here, okay? I do want one of my petals to aim towards this corner. Okay, there we go. I have a little red mark right there. So I do want to aim one of my petals this way towards the corner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw the shape starting from my center, okay? And the way we draw this shape is it kind of comes out and then it comes to a point. Comes out and comes to a point, like so. We have 5 of these petals. Okay, so you want to be able to fit 5 of them going all the way around. okay? And they will definitely overlap your other flowers. That is inevitable. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and fill this guy in. I wanna get 5 of them. Got 3. 4. Got 1 more to fit in here. 5. So got a big old blob down there, right? Okay. Once I have these filled in, I'm gonna take my 9 and I'm gonna put it in the water and I'm gonna pick up my 3. All right, I'm gonna get all the water off my 3 and I'm just gonna really take this, this pretty pink color and I'm gonna take some time and I'm gonna make my edges of my flower really nice and crisp, and I want a nice point on the end of each one of my petals. So that 9 is really great for coverage and just, you know, filling in ground quickly, but it's not so good for detail, okay? And we want a nice crisp edge on our flower here, a nice point, it gives it character. And that 3 will really allow you to do that because you have way more control, okay? So that should have covered up some of your yellow flower up here. It really is massive. And some of your purple flower over here. It's all over the place. Okay. There we are. Y'all, this is an important part while your paint is still wet. So I'm gonna go over it because my paint is still wet, but if you're not ready, I understand. But I do wanna take a lighter pink. I'm just grabbing white, swirling it in with my pink here. And I'm gonna do on each petal just some variation. I want some streakies in here. Okay, so I'm just gonna take white or light pink. I'm just gonna go to each petal and just create some variation. I want some streaks. And that can look different for each of you. Maybe you like a lot of contrast, so you're gonna use a really, really light pink. Maybe you want it to be more subtle. Okay, but I'm going to each petal and I'm just rounding it out with a lighter pink. I don't know how well you can see that. Kinda, you can kinda see it. I'm gonna go in even lighter here so you can really see it. Okay, let's see if this works. But it's nice to do it while your paint is wet because it'll blend better and it'll just create more of an unpredictable streak, which I think is really pretty. You'll get lots of different color variation, whereas if you were just to mix a color on your palette and paint with it, this way you get some blending happening, and I just like painting where you have an element of surprise and unpredictability. Just kind of go with it. Okay, I added more white, so maybe you can see this a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe not. Wow, it is so crazy how different the light is on the camera than it is in real life. There now, maybe you can kind of see it at that angle. Anyway, there is contrast. I'll show you the original painting as well. So you can kind of see it better on the outer petals. Okay. So if you still have some purple left on your palette, we're gonna take just a little bit of purple and paint towards the inner part of the flower. Okay, and it is good to do this while it's still wet. So I'm gonna take this little bit of purple like we used out here, and I'm gonna travel around in a circle, and I'm just lightly pulling out little dashes. I'm gonna go in a circle all the way around my flower. And I'll pull my hand away here in a minute so that you can really see it better. But it's the purple we already have mixed that we used in our flowers already. And it's blending in with that pink, so it's becoming more subtle, which is exactly what we want. We don't want it to be too harsh. Okay, can I see how I made that ring? I'm gonna do that a little bit more. I want some of these to be a little bit longer, a little bit wispier, a little weirder. Okay. See, I made some of them a little bit longer. All right. Now I'm gonna wipe off some of this purple on my paper towel, but I'm actually gonna leave a little bit of it on it purposefully. I'm gonna pick up some yellow and even a little bit of light yellow and regular old yellow on my brush. And I have that purple underlying on my brush, okay? And I'm gonna come into the center here and I'm gonna press in and kind of dab. So I'm turning my canvas to the side so you can see the action here. I'm taking my brush and I'm like just jabbing it and I'm lifting, okay? And what that's doing is it's pushing the light yellow and the bright yellow into my canvas. Simultaneously, it's pulling up that wet pink paint and the purple that's on my brush, right? And it's making this amazing color that is the center of my flower, all the while giving me the texture of the center of a flower. Crazy, huh? All right, so you can do that as much as you want, but I will tell you, you don't want to do it too much, because if you do it too much, you will lose a lot of that beautiful texture. It will start to blend together. So you really want to keep that contrast high, okay? So I'm going to give you a minute to work on that. That is not the end of our flower. We have little white dots that we're going to do here in a minute, but we're going to let this dry first. And we're going to move on to the center of our yellow flowers. I'm going to give you a second to just kind of finish up there. I'm going to try to cover up this white dot, or I'm sorry, this red dot that I have on my white canvas that I made with my hand or my brush earlier. Okay. If that happens to you, you're just going to want to layer white paint on it in thin coats. Let it dry, layer, let it dry, layer until it's no more. Okay. All right, guys, we're doing great. We're filling things out. We're moving right along. It's coming together. Okay. All right, so I have my 3. I'm gonna take a little bit of flamingo pink. If you don't have that, if that's dried up, just mix a little bit. We only need the tiniest bit real quick. Just a little bit of that flamingo pink. That's red, yellow, and white. Size 3 brush. I'm gonna come on to my yellow flowers here, and just like we made that swirl, okay, I'm gonna do the same thing in the center of my flower, but just smaller. I do that by starting in the center of my flower and curving outward, like 6 or 7 times, okay? And I do it relatively quickly too. So here, I'll show you again right here, if you can see. I'm just gonna come in, swirl, 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 swirl. And then the last one up here, I'm gonna turn my canvas so that I don't put my hand in my wet paint. I'm really good at that. Okay. And the last thing that I'm gonna do there is grab a touch of purple, that deep dark purple that we mixed, and I'm going to put 1 dot right in the center of each of those flowers. Okay. One purple dot. Y'all, while I have purple on my brush, I'm gonna do a couple of dots in the center of these flowers, some of the first flowers that we did. I'm just very, very lightly touching the surface of my canvas to get the tiniest dots ever. Okay, if you want to, before you put in that purple on the second flower here, you can grab a little yellow and smear in a little bit of yellow there, and then put your purple dots on top of that. Okay, so see, I smeared in a little bit of yellow, and I'm gonna do my purple dots right on top of that. But I'm gonna do them a little bit differently than I did the first ones. The first ones meaning this, because it's a different flower. I want these to be a little bit tighter, just because it's different, and I just want to show contrast. So I might just do, you know, like 5 or 6 dots there, compared to the other flower is a lot wider and there's more of them. Okay. I'm gonna give you guys a second to kind of catch up. I know that was a lot. The last thing before we do our white flowers, you guys, is we're gonna put little yellow dots in the center of our purple flowers. So I'm gonna do that, and then for real, I'm gonna give you a minute to catch up. So I'm just taking yellow, that light yellow paint, and I'm just doing a couple of dots in the center of my purple flowers. Y'all, in just a second here, we're gonna do our green leaves, and then we're gonna do our white flowers. And those white flowers really go very, very quickly. And then if you wanna do the black dots in the background, that'll be our last step. We're doing great. I'm gonna just scroll across the top here. If anybody has any questions or wants to show me their painting, I'm right here. Happy to look. This might be one of those paintings too where you work on it a little bit after class also. If there was any area that just didn't quite work out. I know when there's paintings like this, there's so many steps, it feels like it's very fast paced too. So if anybody needs me to send you the recording, just let me know. I am very happy to do that, to go over any of the flowers that may have been too fast or any of the leaf technique. I know we spent a long time on the leaves. Diane, you, yeah. So, okay. All right, you guys, I had to set myself a timer so that I wouldn't go over the leaves and like give you a full minute, because I know sometimes I say, okay, I'm gonna let you work on this for a second, and then I don't. So, okay. Let's work on these green leaves here. Now, let me scroll back over here so I can see myself. Okay, so we're gonna work on these parts right here. Now, this is gonna be, you're gonna put these in wherever you need them to be based on your composition. I wanna remind you that there's 2 spots where we're gonna put in our white flowers, right up in here. So you're not gonna wanna put any green leaves up here. And then right in here, okay? To come on a little bit over your pink flower and right up next to your purple flower here and up here, or really anywhere, okay? So we have a nice green leaf down here, up here, there's one in the middle here and out to the side, okay? So this is gonna be very similar to the yellow flowers. I'm gonna show you how to do one, and you can follow me to the 4 areas that we're gonna put these in, and it's the same recipe over and over, okay? So you're gonna want to use probably one of the same greens that you used in your leaves, and originally when we did the pineapple leaves, the top part. So I'm gonna use just the green that I mixed a little bit of white into. Okay, so it's not the basic green that we have on our palette, but that green with a little bit of white mixed into it. It's just gonna be a little more opaque, and it's gonna be easier for us to see it. Okay, so I'm gonna start right down here at the bottom. Now the point of these leaves is to really curve everything out, to smooth out the edges of our pineapple, okay? So right down in here, and it also just fills in some negative space, okay? So I'm gonna draw a thin line. It's gonna be the stem of my little leaf section here, out the bottom, coming out of my red leaf, I'm sorry, my red flower. And at the end there, I'm gonna draw kind of a almond shape leaf. I'll get more paint on my brush here. Okay. And then I'm gonna draw little stems coming off of my main stem here that kind of alternate. And I'm gonna draw my almonds off of those. I don't know about you, but my paint is getting a little bit gunky from the air hitting it. So this would be a good reason if you needed to add just a tiny little bit of water to your paint. You could do that. Just a tiny bit, because you don't want it to get transparent, right? But you do want it to be a little bit smoother. Okay, so I have got 3 leaves so far. I'm gonna do a 4th down here. And then as I get closer to my red flower, my leaves begin to hide if I'm gonna fit them in at all. So I might put one down in here, but I can't really see it because it's going behind my flower, okay? So I'll show you what that looks like here. See how they're coming back here, but they're hiding. You can't even really see them anymore. Okay, you can decide to do that or not do that. It just depends on your composition and if you need that extra space down there, okay? Okay. I'm gonna do another one out to the side over here. So it's coming out of my yellow flower and curving upward towards my big pink flower up there at the top. Same idea. I'm going to round out the top, give myself a nice little leaf on the top there. Okay, draw out the stems, alternating. Okay. Draw into my leaves. It's gonna overlap my flowers just a little bit here and there, and that's just fine. Okay. All right, we got 2 out of 4 so far. I'm gonna do one over here. Okay, so if I did not have this purple leaf or purple flower right here, it would be coming right from behind my yellow flower, right up in here, okay? But because I have that purple flower, it's probably gonna come maybe right behind my purple flower. So I don't know what your composition looks like, but try to fit one in right over in this area, okay? And you know, for me, it's not gonna have as many leaves as my other ones because I don't want it to throw off. I have a really nice curve here that's happened with my flowers and I don't wanna mess it up too much. Okay. Okay. So once again, y'all, same idea. Same thing, just over and over. It's nice to have that repeating element. When you're painting over flowers though, you might need to paint another layer. It really is just gonna depend on how thick your paint is and how opaque that is coming out for you. Okay. All right, the last one is also coming out of our big pink flower right here, up in the center. Okay, so depending upon these 3, you can angle it this way or this way, whichever way you angle it will help you kind of achieve a little bit more balance here. Okay, so coming up the center here, I'm really just filling in this space. It's my goal. Got my leaves in. Okay. Doing one more quick coat over those. Okay. I'm gonna wash my brush out. I really wanna get all this green out. I'm gonna do my little white flowers, which goes so quick. And all that's left are the black dots. All the green is off. All the water is off. Now you probably have a white that looks a lot like mine. It is just crazy, right? I call this dirty white. And I love the end of a painting when I have white like this, because when I'm gonna do my white flowers, but really they're not pure white, they're dirty white, okay? And it's just a very, 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 very light color. I couldn't even tell you if it's a light pink or a light purple, where there's even a little like green kind of in there. I mean, I don't know, it's just a light color, okay? So I just use my dirty white. I just grab it wherever and I use it for things like this, okay? So to do these flowers, you need to be quick. I don't want your brain to think too much about this. I especially don't want you to put these in any kind of a pattern. You want them to overlap each other, and you want them to be really thick and close together. For example, you see like right in here, let's see if I can get this for you. See how they're just layered on top of each other? Okay, and up here too. Okay. So they have 5 little petals for the most part. Some of them might even have 4. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here. So try to watch. I'm gonna pull in 5 times. Sometimes 4. I'm just filling in that negative space. I'm gonna overlap my pink flower just a little bit, okay? See that? It's hard to tell because I don't have my yellow dots in there, but see how quick that was? Very quick. I'm gonna come down here. You know, I don't have as much negative space down here as I did in my original painting, but I do have some up in here. Negative space is the space, the background color. That's called negative space. So I'm gonna put these white flowers kind of wherever I see negative space. So that can be anywhere on your painting. So instead of only 2 sections, like on my original painting, I have 3 sections of negative space. I'm gonna purposefully come over this pink flower a little bit, kind of calm it down. So big. Okay. I'm gonna wipe off that white. I'm gonna grab the bright, bold yellow, not the pastel yellow. And I'm gonna put a dot in the center of each of my flowers. And that really makes them pop out. Then you're like, oh, that's a flower there. Okay. See how quick that was? Right there, right there. I think those yellow dots really help. Okay. Okay. Then you just need to take a look at your painting. Okay. You can decide if you need to change the composition by adding more flowers somewhere, or if you need to add more greenery somewhere. Okay, take a look back at your leaves up at the top. Make sure that you like them. If they're balanced, maybe you need to make one of them a little bit longer, a little bit wider, you know, kind of play with those a little bit. If you are having a hard time figuring out what to do, if something is just off on your painting and you just can't figure it out, I actually recommend taking your phone and taking a picture of it and look at the picture on your phone. For some reason, it just changes everything. And sometimes if I'm working on a painting and something is off and I just can't figure it out, I'll look at it on my phone. The other thing that you can do is put it far away from you, hang it up on a wall or lean it up against a bookcase or something and look at it from a distance. You will just study it for a while and then it might just hit you. Oh, it's because this leaf isn't long enough. And if I made this a little bit longer, then this would look better or whatever it is, okay? I always say this, you guys know this, sometimes it's just really hard to see what you're doing when you're sitting right up on top of it. So get some perspective, okay? Get a little distance from it. The last piece of advice too would be to just go to bed. Put your paints away, cover your palette with a piece of like press and seal, and that way your paint stays wet. So in the morning you can take it off, or tomorrow whenever you get home from work, you can take that press and seal off or saran wrap and you can keep working. But you need some time away, time away, clear your brain. And when you come back at it, you'll see it with fresh eyes. Okay. Send me a picture of it too. If you just want to keep working on it tonight, send me a picture if you're having an issue with anything. And I am happy to take a look at it and tell you what I think needs to happen, whether it be shape or color, composition, whatever the issue may be. Okay. So I'm going to show you the original and then the final. We're going to just do our black dots real quick, but I just wanted to show you these so that you could see I am the same person, I am the same painter, but every painting always comes out so very different. So you guys have heard me talk about dots before and how serious I am about dots. And how I really do believe that you not only need a super, 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 super point on your paintbrush, like where you're taking your hands and you're making a point, you only need enough paint on your paintbrush to do like maybe 2 dots, okay? You really don't want much. You also want to disengage your brain best you can and just go straight in on your canvas and dot. And you want to go kind of quickly so that you don't make a pattern. Okay. And I'm pressing very lightly. I'm trying really hard not to make a pattern. I'm going back frequently for paint. Now, if some of your dots end up being bigger than some of your other dots, that's okay. Let the paint dry completely and either go back to your other dots and make them bigger if you want to. Or if you like the smaller dots, just take a little bit of white paint once your black paint is totally dry and just carve off a side of it with the white paint, okay? Okay, black dots on. There we are. I think the dots are cute. They're cute with the pineapple. I don't know if you guys know the story about the pineapple, but when we were living in Savannah, one of our friends who was an antique dealer, his name is actually Charlie Brown, which is funny. But he told us a story about the pineapple, and I never knew this, but whenever you would go to stay at somebody's house, if you were overstaying your welcome, they would put a pineapple out on the mantle. And there's mantles in every single house in Savannah because all of the homes are super old. So if you came out one morning and there was a pineapple on the mantle, that was like a subtle way of saying, like, get out of my house, you've overstayed your welcome, without actually saying anything. Because, you know, in the South, especially Savannah, everybody's so polite with being like totally ruthless at the same time. So anyway, that's a fun thing about the pineapple. So I hope you guys had a good night tonight. I hope that you enjoyed painting. This was definitely a challenge, so be proud of yourself for sticking it out all the way to the end. And please send me pictures. You know I love process shots, I love palette shots, and I especially want a final shot of the painting as well, please. And thank you very much. If you guys have any questions, like I said, send them to me on Messenger, and please wash out your brushes, okay? Rinse them in warm water and lay them on a paper towel to dry, and then return them when you can. All right, guys.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome, Denise. Oh, Diane, it looks awesome. Bye, Amy.
No, I have to work on it because two of my flowers look like eggs, so
Okay.
I have to fix it.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So, I can see that the center is, yeah, sunny side up. Hey, so what you might want to do, oh, Lindsay, that is beautiful. Send me a picture of that. That's beautiful.
Oh, that one's beautiful.
Oh, Denise, that turned out great. Diane, what you might want to do is just swirl your colors together more. It looks too blocky. So maybe just try back and forth, purple, white, purple, white, purple, white on top of each other, okay? That might mix things up a little bit better, okay? All right, you guys, y'all have a great night. Send me pictures. Thank you so much for spending your night with me and supporting our small business. I appreciate the heck out of y'all. And I will see you next time.
Thanks.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye, Carol.